Hello and welcome to this episode of the Ranting Atheist podcast. Today we'll be listening to the deconversion story of a fellow Nigerian atheist. He was raised in a Christian home and is a pastor's kid as well. So I related quite a bit, to his story. There's a difference, but that pastor's kid aspect is something I really relate to it, and I really enjoyed hearing his story. So I hope you do too. If you haven't subscribed up, please consider subscribing on Apple, Spotify, Google, YouTube, and any other platform that you use to listen to podcasts. Please, you can also rate. There are some of these platforms allow you to rate and also comment. So please feel free to do that and give feedback. Feedback is really necessary and appreciated. So let's go and listen to the deconversion story of Israel Lee.
So bro, you're welcome. Yeah, at last we are doing this. We have been pushing here and there. Yeah. So our listener is hearing this strange and sultry, sexy voice. So can we know you? Can we your name? Location, if you are comfortable with that, your age, if you are Gen Z, Millennial, Gen X, or Agbalagba, what you do for a living, and any other thing you like to add.
Hi. My name is Israel. I usually go by Israeli.
Right.
I'm 25 years old. Just turned 25 this month.
Nice.
What else? Currently, I won't say I'm working, but I'm looking for like something better. Like I'm in between jobs. So currently I work with my dad in the pharmacy. That's just what I do for now. What else do you guys need to know about me? I like comic books and I like movies.
You available, sir?
Yeah.
Oh.
No,
you like what again? I didn't hear that.
I said I like comic books and movies. I think that's like what I'm known for on the interwebs.
All right. If you and small, anyway, what's the difference between the Bible and comic books? Or
there's not much difference. The only difference is that people take the Bible to be reality. That's just it.
There are people too that might be taking the comic books seriously. We don't know. They might feel Spider-Man and co are just hiding in the shadows, trying not to be discovered by the CIA.
And we usually call them conspiracy theorists. Like we don't take such people seriously. So
yes.
Although fun fact here. So I don't know if you know Star Wars, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So funny enough, there's actually like sort of a religion based on Star Wars. They call the religion Jediism. So anyone who is a practitioner of the religion is kind of like a Jedi. They believe in the existence of the Force. So,
and they are serious. They are not trolling.
No, they are not trolling. It's like just the way they classify it is like an aspect of the Star Wars fandom that just like is really serious. Like they take the whole Force thing seriously. I don't know if they believe they can move things with their mind, but yeah.
Holy fucking shit, man. Shit is religion business and the money they inside though. It's the temptation every day. Because people are gullible. It's so easy. Like now, atheists can just easily walk into the church and say, I was an atheist, but the Holy Spirit arrested me, and they will drink that in hook, line, and sinker, like without question. Because
like the Holy Spirit can remind you forgot your car keys at home, but he can't tell you when someone is bullshitting.
Oh, Holy Spirit can't do that. Holy Spirit says never snitch me to my parents yet, so Holy Spirit in the mud, Yeah, bro. So with this religion thing, what do you currently identify as? Is it agnostic, atheist, irreligious, or you don't choose labels and all that?
No, I use the word atheist.
Why did you choose to use the word atheist?
Because let's just say I don't, for lack of a better, let me just, in simple terms, I don't believe there's a God. And my belief is that there's no, I don't really see any evidence that is really convincing for me to say, you know what, yeah, this is a God. Because in my interactions with people and when I ask people questions like, you know, in their beliefs and stuff, they don't really give me convincing answers or point out convincing evidences to support the existence of a God. So I just decided, you know what, yeah, let me call myself an atheist. Originally,
Yeah.
I went by agnostic. Then somewhere along the line, like further down, I just said, you know what,
Okay.
yeah, let me just go with atheist. Because the reason why I called myself agnostic was I there was a time I was like, what if there's a God here, but the God doesn't like interact with humanity? Like we can't really say whether or not this God exists. You know what I'm saying? I think
Yeah.
it's called the hidden God argument or something like that. I can't remember now. But
Divine
eventually,
hiddenness.
yeah, divine hiddenness. Yes, thank you. So eventually, I was just like, you know what? If there's a God out there that exists and doesn't interact with humans, I might well say like I don't believe there's such a thing that exists because there's no evidence for such a thing. So why should I say I believe there's a God that exists but doesn't interact with humans? I don't know if you get what I'm saying.
Yeah,
Like at the end of the day,
because
there's no
not
reason to.
interacting. So how do you prove
Yeah.
it? It's not interacting.
So
So it's as good as
when
not
I
being there.
exactly. So when I came to that conclusion, I was just like, you know what, I'm no longer agnostic. Let me just identify as atheist because what's the point?
Mm, I feel you. I feel you. So let's go into your religious background, your upbringing. Because I know from your accents, you can easily assume you're a Nigerian. Abina,
Yeah,
I'm a
yeah,
Nigerian here. So
yeah.
automatically we're baptized in some form of religious indoctrination. So please give us the
Yeah.
full lowdown of your experience to the points of which you remember.
I think, funny enough, one of the earliest memories I have, like, when I mean earliest memories, like, I think I was about 2 or 3 years old, is my mom telling me the story of Noah. And it was one of these, like, picture books. I don't know if it's not my Bible stories, but it was
Oh,
basically, it's similar, like, you know, it has pictures and stuff. So this book was kind of similar with that. It was basically the story of Noah, but like in picture format, accessible for kids and everything. So one of the earliest memories I have in my life ever, apart from my brother being born, is my mom reading this story to me. And I remember when she was reading it to me, and I remember what I said. I was like, "Did this actually happen?" And she was like, "Yes, it did." And I was like, "How?" And she was like, "Right, because God is the most powerful being in the universe, so anything is possible for him." And I was like, "So this God exists?" And she was like, "Yes, that all you have to do is believe." And
wow.
this is a conversation I remember because like this was the defining moment. I was like, oh wow. You know when you're introduced to something that blows your mind? Yeah. This
Yeah.
was like the same thing for me as a kid. Like I think I said I was like 2 or 3 years old. So hearing this for the first time, knowing that there's someone out there who has all this power and cares for me, I was like, wow, this is like mind blowing stuff. I was just mind blowing.
Yeah.
And ever since then, I think I'll say I believe that, there's been a God and everything. And I'm a pastor's child. You know what I mean? So,
Welcome to our WhatsApp group.
so my dad is a pastor. So, but the kind of family I grew up in, we are taught that, you know what, this Christian stuff, like believing in God is not something we're really taught to question. But what we're taught to question in like the way my dad raised us and everything was to question like what preachers are always preaching about the Bible. So, for example, something like tithing. Yeah, tithing is something
Mm,
that only exists in the Old Testament, not the New Testament. So,
yeah.
when we hear someone emphasizing the teachings of tithing, our spider sense just starts tingling because we're like, this is Old Testament, and we're supposed to believe in, New Testament, whatever, New
Yeah.
dispensation, and all of that. So,
Uh,
anytime we attend the church and we hear someone just emphasizing tithing, the alarm bells just start ringing because we're like, this is Old Testament.
red
You
flag.
shouldn't be focusing on stuff like this. Exactly. So that's the kind of house hopping. And I don't even know. I think I'll classify us as, I don't even know if I'll call us Pentecostal or evangelical because we kind of did both. And
To be pentagelical.
yeah, because I have memories where like we went on evangelism. But my dad wasn't always a pastor. So I think when we moved to Ekpoma, that's in Edo State, he became chaplain of Chapel of the Good Shepherd. It's a church in Amrusali University. So that was where his should I say his pastoring started. Before that, we just used to attend church and stuff like that. So when he said he wanted to be a pastor, all of a sudden he saw this, job interview in the newspaper for it in this church in the university. So we moved from Abuja, that's Gwagwalada, to Ekpoma in Edo State. We moved around a lot, to be honest. I think we moved around about 2 or 3 times now, about 4 times actually. But yeah, so we moved to Ekpoma.
The pastor work, Abi?
Yeah. So we moved to Ekpoma. He was chaplain there for a few years until, to be honest, I don't know what happened, but he eventually quit that job, and then we moved to Benin City where we currently are. And he started a branch of a church because he has a sister who is married. So his brother-in-law has a church. The brother-in-law is like the GO of the church, the general overseer. So he started a branch of that church in Benin City. And that one went on for like, I can't even count how many years, but like that's the longest he's been a pastor because we've changed locations. There was a time we used to meet at a recreational center every Sunday, like where they have swimming pool and stuff like that. And I remember when we were having like our Sunday meetings in this place, people will cross like the pulpit to use the ATM in the like the space we're using, because it was an open space kind of thing. And that's how like we were doing church. There was also a time we even did the church like in our house at some point. So we'll have drum sets on keyboard in our house because the sitting room was kind of wide and we're not like more than about 10 or so. So you can tell like, my dad was really serious about this kind of stuff and all of that. But yes, exactly. Eventually I think currently now the church is like in a rented apartment. That's where they're currently meeting. Eventually he had to leave the church because I think he had some kind of falling out with his brother-in-law. Yeah. I'm not entirely sure what the nature of the disagreement was.
Shocker.
Yeah, he had to leave. So currently he's pastorless, for lack of a better word. He's still like
he's a congregationless pastor in a way.
Exactly. Yeah. Once in a while, people still invite him to like preach in the churches and everything.
I know the type. I know that.
Yeah. So that's like the.
So all this while how was your faith being affected? All this moving up and down, watching everything, third party. What was your own personal relationship with God?
My own, I won't classify myself as all these, spirit cocoa kind of people that, carry religion on their head, just that kind of thing. Yeah. I was more of the chillaxed version, for lack of a better word. But even though I was kind of chillaxed, I still kind of took it seriously. Like I was really involved in the church. So one of the first times I was on stage, I think I was about 7 years old. I don't think I was more than 7 or 8 years old at the time. And it was on Children's Day. We were doing a special event at when he was the chaplain of this church in Ekpoma. And I was there giving we call the section good news. So basically, I was a child reporter giving good news and stuff. I don't remember what I said that day. It was like something like a drama, but like a news segment on stage. I don't remember what I said that day, just because it got to a point I forgot my lines. So for like 2 minutes, I was just looking at the audience and sweating, and I almost shit my pants that day. Like it was really nerve-wracking and everything. Then I think the first time I preached, the first time I preached in front of an audience, like in front of the pulpit, I was 13 years old. That was also like on Children's Day. Funny enough, I think.
Was you pressured into it that you were motivated or?
No, I was the one who was motivated. Like, pastor's kid now, you have to set an example for the other children. So I was like, let me do this thing. And people had been implying all through the time I'd been growing up that, because me and my dad are very much alike. So they're like, you're going to be a pastor like your dad, that kind of thing. But there we are now.
The fucking
So I was 13 years old when I preached in front of an audience on Children's Day, and I was preaching about the end times. And I think it was also that same day that I first came into contact with porn.
Hallelujah.
Because
Hallelujah.
you know this thing where Christians, the world, like, were really judgmental about other people. So on stage that I was talking about how, like, my fellow teenagers and stuff were always watching porn, but in order to hide that they were watching it, they would call it bluffing. So after I finished preaching that day, I was like, you know what is even this porn self? Curiosity carried me. I carried my parents' laptop. Carried my parents' laptop, hacked the password, connected the modem, went on the internet, just typed porn. And I started seeing all sorts of things that a 13-year-old should not be seeing.
PH appeared immediately.
Exactly. Like, Google was showing me stuff. I was like, oh. And that was really strange. Like,
X videos,
like,
X videos
exactly.
that won't appears first.
And the
X
funny
videos
thing
is the one
is,
that
X videos, X hamster, like all those things. So
yeah,
I was like,
Pornhub is even the third. Pornhub is number 4. You can imagine.
So I just googled porn and I saw these things. I was like, so this is what I've been missing. And from that day on, I wasn't judgmental of, like, people who watch porn or anything, that kind of thing. But I think the way my Christianity works here, over the years, there have been times when I encountered different people or asked certain questions. But you know, the questions don't stick the landing, because there's a way you kind of have how do I put it? There's a way you get into defensive mode. I don't know, for lack of a better phrase, and you just dismiss the questions. So I think the first time I encountered,
Rationalize it or something.
yeah, I think the first time I encountered an atheist was, I think this was when I went to the village, funny enough. And it's funny because my mom, I can't even remember how old I was. This memory is very vague. But my mom told me that, you see those children over there, yeah? They're not Christians, they don't believe in God. Don't play with them. That was my first introduction to atheists. Eventually, I played with them quite all right. And I was surprised that they were using words like fuck. Like, you know, those kind of things you see in movies. I was like, what is this? What are these people doing? And when I saw them using that word in my head, I was like, nah, these people are immoral people. I can't be arguing with these people, that kind of thing. So, seeing as this is my first interaction, I think subconsciously over the years, when I came across people who are unbelievers, there's this, like, you know, your walls just come up, for lack of a better phrase. Yeah. So when you come across such people, or come across things that question your belief, that's you just go into DEFCON 5. Your defenses.
Yeah, this is exactly why I'm doing what I'm, because what you just said, they've already planted a seed, they're giving a false notion of what atheists are.
Yeah.
So when you just come out like, hey,
only my interaction with them. Yeah. So over the years, though, there were times I'll have these questions, but nah, I'll just find ways to answer them or just ignore them. So, like, the whole, you know, the Adam and Eve and evolution thing, right?
Yeah.
I can't remember how I rationalized it, but I think I said that there was a way I combined the two, and I said, like, dinosaurs existed, but, like, Adam and Eve were still the first men or something like that. There was a way I just, you know, combined these two and just made it make sense in my head. Then Noah's Ark. Noah's Ark was really funny because I rationalized it due to Harry Potter. So in uni, I watched all the Harry Potter movies, and there was a particular scene in one of the Harry Potter movies where they opened a tent. So on the outside, the tent looks very small. But when you enter inside, you know, the tent looks larger and bigger than it actually is on the outside. So in my head, I was like, oh, maybe this is what God did with Noah's Ark. So on the outside, the ark is small, but, like, on the inside, it can contain all these billions of animals.
Yeah, very possible. Very possible.
So I just rationalized all this stuff and kept it moving. But I think what led me to questioning my beliefs more was during NYC. So during NYC, I was posted to one remote village called Ohanku in Abia State. And for the duration I was there, like over a year, right? about a year, sorry.
Yeah.
I only entered a church like 2 times. And the reason why is because like in that place here, all of them speak Igbo.
All of them speak Igbo.
So
Oh,
I couldn't
the
understand,
church.
the church, like the pastor will be speaking. They sing in Igbo. But once in a while, they switch to English. So maybe you catch one or two things. The only reason I entered church 2 times was because I think I was crushing on one girl there. And she used to go to the church every Sunday. So that was the reason why I entered the church. Other than that, I didn't enter. So during this period here where there's no, you don't have the weekly subscription package of, church being fed into your bloganda and everything. You now have the space to actually examine and all of that. And I realized that, you know what, materially speaking, yeah, like there's no difference. Like if someone says there's a Christian, like if they believe in God and someone who doesn't believe in God, there's no material difference between both of them at the same time. Like, I don't know if you get what I'm saying. Like there's no, how do I put it? You can, whether you believe in God or not, you can either be a horrible person or a good person, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And
yes,
you can be poor while believing in God. You can be rich while not believing in God. Like there's no fast and hard road to believing or not believing, that kind of thing. And I think I also had a discussion with some other people because the thing with NYC is you meet other people from different religious backgrounds. So one of my really good friends back then, who I should actually call sometime because I'm really bad at keeping in touch. But one of our really good friends during NYC, he was a Muslim, right? So every Friday he would go to church, to the mosque and everything. And on Sunday, me, I'll just be there, nobody to talk to and everything, just churchless. And we used to have discussions about religion and the Bible once in a while. And it was through him I discovered that, Jesus actually exists, in Islam. It's just that they don't believe he's the son of God. They just believe he's the prophet. You know what I mean? Like a prophet, sorry.
Yeah.
So hearing this for the first time, I was like, what the hell? Like, how did I not know this, that kind of thing? Because I was like, when you're a Christian, you're kind of taught to believe that every other religion but your own is the true one. That kind of thing. And I was like, how can I believe this thing when I don't even know shin about these other religions? The only thing I knew that Islam and Christianity had in common before this encounter was that they both had Abraham as central figures in their religion. So in Islam, Abraham is Ibrahim. You get what I'm saying? Then in Christianity, you have Abraham. So I understood why they were called Abrahamic religions. But I honestly did not know that Jesus existed in Islam. But they don't think of him as the son of God. Like they don't see him as divine, so to speak. They just see him as a prophet, one of the prophets before Muhammad and stuff like that. So I was like, what's going on? Now, put that aside, I also met someone who is a deist. Now, you know what a deist is, right? Like people who believe there's a God, but they can't really, they don't really have any sufficient evidence, so to speak, to just be like, this is God. And they are not really tied to any religion per se, or the one I met wasn't really tied to any religion. Looking back now here, I think this guy was probably lying. I think that he was probably an atheist, but he didn't want to say the word because, people will attack him because this was when we're still in camp. So one day we're just talking about religion and this guy was like, he's a deist. And I was like, what is that? And he explained, what a deist means and everything. But I think when I came out as atheist, like a year later, he was one of the people that was like, congratulations, people will not understand that you questioned your way up to this point and everything. And me and the guy were really cool back in camp. And me, I was even surprised that I was cool with this guy because, he's, for lack of a better phrase, he's not a Christian. But I think part of the reason why I was cool with him was because in my head, I was like, what, even if he's not a Christian, he still believes there's a God. That kind of thing, like believing a God makes you moral or something like that. So I still had that belief then. And NYC was like a transformative year for me because I don't know how to put it, but when I came back here, church was no longer making sense to me. Like, I don't even know. But let me give you one more story from NYC. So there was a time I was reading a novel, a Jack Reacher novel in NYC. And I remember like the a conversation that took place in the novel where the character talks with a Catholic priest, and they basically get to the point of talking about God. And the priest is like, you know what? The Bible isn't like the current translation we have isn't even the original one. Like this thing has been translated like how many times from different languages and stuff. So there's a possibility that some of what you're reading, is lost in translation and whatever.
Yeah.
And I was like, what the fuck? Like, because before then,
Like, is this fiction or this serious? Are they serious or are they being fictional?
I knew they were serious. The thing is, when you've consumed a lot of fiction over time, you get to know when stuff is being like, when they impute like a scientific fact within a sci-fi movie, that kind of thing. I don't know if you get what I'm saying. Like, you just get good at discerning. So I didn't even have to go. I think it was until a year later I Googled it and I read Bart Ehrman's work and saw his debates on YouTube. I was like, oh yeah, they mentioned it in this book I read. So I read that and I was like, so you mean to tell me like what I'm reading might not even be the truth?
Be the original.
Like, and then it hit me like, how is it that you're the most powerful being and the best way to reach people was through something that could be changed over thousands of years? Like, why not just walk up to people and be like, hi, I'm God. Nice to meet you. Something. I don't know if you get what I'm saying. Like, why all this convoluted process and everything?
He's everywhere, omnipresent. Motherfucker is right here in this clubhouse room that we're using now.
That thing was confusing to me. So I came back and I started going to church, and church was not making sense because I'll be having arguments in my head with what the pastor is saying. So I remember one scenario where I can't remember the passage in the Old Testament, but it was a passage where Moses also got God or something. Like there was a disagreement in the camp, and God opened the ground to swallow people. And I think there was a part where God directed Moses also to go and attack certain people because they have sinned against him. And in my head, I'm like, how is this different from many Muslim terrorists that attack people because these people don't believe in God? So in my head, I'm like, wait a minute. Moses was a terrorist. Like the thing just clicked, like that kind of thing. Because how will you get up and say God has sent me to kill you because you don't believe in him and you have sinned against him? Like, how is that different from people who bomb or do suicide bombing and stuff like that? I could not just, separate these things in my head. And that was just like, that's just an example. So imagine you're going to church every Sunday here and you keep, like, as the pastor is preaching, you're in your head, you're like, actually, that kind of thing. And it's like you're in a debate with the pastor and just like offering counterpoints and more, should I say, rational counterpoints. So
yeah,
like church did not just.
This is me when I read open heavens. When I read open heavens, I do. I was there. I was like, fuck this tribe, man.
So, but even with this year, this is just like, this is after I came back from NYC. So looking back now, I know I was in the deconversion process, but at the time, I didn't even know what was happening to me. I just knew that there was this.
It wasn't just me.
So I think one day I got into an argument with my dad and my parents, and I just broke down. I was like, you know what? Look, I don't really believe in this thing anymore. And I think at that point in time, I called myself an agnostic, because in my head, I was still scared of, being an atheist and what if hell is real? What if I'm wrong? That kind of thing. So I was just like, I'm an agnostic.
Last line of defense.
Yeah. And my dad just broke down and started crying because he was like,
fuck.
He has introduced us to this thing that he believes is good. We don't want to participate. So I just had to comfort my dad and tell him, look, you know what? We might not believe this thing you do, but that doesn't make you a bad parent, that kind of thing. And I just had to let you know that, because let's be honest here, my dad has been there for like a lot of major moments in my life. So I don't need religion to tell me like my dad is a decent human being, that kind of thing. So I just told him like, look, you're a good parent. You shouldn't feel bad that we don't believe this thing that you do. Like, we still love you and we still care for you and everything. Like, this is not going to come between what I have for you and everything. So I just comforted him and told him all of that. And that was it. And I think that day or the next day, because I had been following some of these people on Twitter, Jide now. some Nigerian atheists on Twitter. So I had been seeing some of their tweets during this whole deconversion, whatever, during this year has been deconverting. So it added more to my deconversion process. And sometimes I was even the ones making tweets. Like when I look back at some of the tweets I make, I was like, this is an atheist tweet. Like I shouldn't have been making these tweets and calling myself a Christian. Because I remember during NYSC, I saw a tweet that asked like, if Jesus was in our time here and he was sentenced to death by an electric chair, would we make necklaces out of the electric chair and paraphernalia out of it and be wearing it on our necks and, hang it up on the wall and be praying to it? And I was like, yeah, that makes sense because crucifixion is a Roman technique of, torture and killing someone. Just like the electric chair is like our modern version of that. So those are the kind of things that are going through my head. So on this day that, excuse me, on this day that I came out to my dad as agnostic, I think that day or the next day, I just went on YouTube. I think I Googled the word atheist and just started watching videos on atheism and stuff. So I came across this guy, Alex O'Connor, Cosmic Skeptic, Rationality Rules, Genetically Modified Skeptic, like all these YouTube accounts. So I was watching debates and all of that. And I don't think it took me like a month or so before I was like, I'm an atheist, that kind of thing. Because somewhere along the line, I had this question that I mentioned earlier of like, what if there's a God out there that, we can't detect or anything, but he exists? And I was just like, I'm an atheist. I don't believe in this shit anymore. And that was like the most freeing thing I'd ever done in my life. Like, I don't know how to explain it. Like, I think someone said that admitting, like, coming out as an atheist is like what they told you being born again will feel like. Like, to be honest, that's how it felt. Like, there's just a way you look at the world differently. I don't know how to put it. And it felt nothing short of amazing. Like, I was just like, wow. So this is all I've been denying myself of. And the moment I could admit I'm an atheist, there were certain questions that, or certain areas of curiosity that I could now delve into because it wasn't at odds with, my beliefs. Because when the religious belief is there, there's not something to push back against the world, whatever ideologies you encounter. So, for example, something like evolution. I now read about evolution. And reading this as an atheist was kind of eye-opening for me because you know how they tell you like human beings evolved from monkeys and stuff? That was one of the first myths that was disproved for me because I was like, oh, okay, human beings and monkeys have the same ancestors. They didn't actually, like human beings didn't actually evolve from monkeys, So all these wrong notions I had could be corrected because there's no religious belief to serve as a defense to these things. You get what I'm saying? So I wasn't trying to reconcile something like Adam and Eve with, evolution. And I didn't have a hard time accepting evolution even. So all of that was just there. So like all this kind of stuff, just like there was this mental liberation, for lack of a better phrase, I had. So I could, like, I don't know how to explain it here. Anything I felt was taboo to ask as a Christian, I had the freedom to just, exploit now more as an atheist. So I did all of that. And that's what I mean by it's freeing. Like, there's just a way you don't have to be scared. But I think one of the last bastions, should I say, of indoctrination I had to get over was the fear of hell. So once again, I went to YouTube and I found Cosmic Skeptic's video on how he overcame hell. And for me, what I do or what I did to overcome the fear of hell was, first of all, since I wasn't afraid of going to hell in other religions, like, why should I be afraid of going to hell when I'm longer believe? Like, there are like 1,001 religions I could go to. So when you taking the numbers of the different religions and all the various variations of a hell or a place of torment or whatever, you start not feeling scared because you're like, Christianity is just one of these religions. It's just that it's the religion you happen to be born into, you know. So that's why it has a stronger hold on you. That's one. So this was like how I got over my fear of hell. The second way was to make jokes about it. So sometimes I'm on Twitter or on Clubhouse and interacting with fellow atheists. I'm like, I'll see you in hell, you know, that kind of thing. Like hell is full of people like me who do stuff like this. And, you know, making jokes about it kind of made you realize it's not something serious, because it lessens the weight of the fear it has on you. Because when you can joke about something you're scared of, and you find creative ways to just be funny about it, you realize that this thing is it's not that deep, you know. And that was how I got over my fear of hell. And yeah, I think that's basically it. Like that's how my deconversion started. And
fucking awesome.
Yeah. So when religion is gone, obviously other things started, you know, shifting. So I started being more open to feminism, started reading more about, you know, gay rights and homosexuality and all of that. And so a funny story here, before I deconverted, I was open to accepting gay people. But the way I wasn't one of those Christians who was like, love the sin, love the sinner but hate the sin, you know. And I owe this to Pinterest. So one day in uni, I downloaded Pinterest and I started using the app because it has a lot of art there and I like looking at, you know, pretty stuff and whatever. So one day I was scrolling on Pinterest and I came across like a meme. For the life of me, I can't remember what this post said, but I remember like how it changed my mind on homosexuality. And it basically made me realize that homosexuality is not about, you know, two people having sex. It's about, you know, two people being in love. And I was like, wait a minute. This actually makes sense because, you know, when we're talking or when people are talking about homosexuality and queer people, they're always talking about what's their sex life like. And it never occurs to people what queer people want to do to a large extent is not very different from what straight people want to do. And when I became an atheist, I read this book, What's Wrong with Homosexuality by John Convino. And he basically makes the argument about, you know, he's debunking some of the arguments that, you know, religious people make against homosexuality. And I read it and he was like, here's the thing here. Queer people or gay people or whatever you want to call them, they want to go on dates, they want to do PDA, they want to have a kid with their partner, and they want to grow old with their partner. All of these are things that, you know, straight people can relate to because straight people do these things. And for the most part, people see it as normal. But when it comes to queer people or gay people in particular, it's always about, you know, you're choking your dick in another person's anus. They don't care about the fact that you actually love this person. You know what I'm saying? It's always on the sex part of it. Yeah. So all of these things just got deconstructed more as I became an atheist. Even the same thing with feminism. So I started reading more on all of these topics that, you know, as a Christian, I won't say I wasn't open to it, but like I said, the foundation of, you know, believing in God that's how I've been brought up. It wasn't something, you know, you could question. But becoming an atheist and removing that foundation from there, you now get to put in your own values and your own principles and question those principles and see how they, you know, correlate with, you know, with reality and how you interact with other people. And I discovered it's more practical because when you're not working with the intention of making heaven, like there's a way you connect more to your fellow human beings. I don't know how to put it. So I think on Twitter, someone asked me this question, like, if people don't believe in God, like, I don't know if it was on Twitter, someone asked me, or if I asked myself, because I ask myself these questions from time to time. So I think I asked myself, like, if people don't believe in God, like, if people don't have that belief to keep moving forward, like, what else do they have? And my answer is simple. Like, if people don't have a God to believe in, like, they have each other. That's just a simple answer. Because yeah, life is scary. Like we all know life is scary and it's very chaotic. Like you can't predict what will happen. And it makes sense that people want to believe in the supernatural. Like they want to believe that there's someone out there, much more powerful than they are, who cares for them. But if that person is not there, what do we have? The simple truth is we have each other. And I always tell people this, that it's like when you're in secondary school here and they give you an assignment and you don't do the assignment. So you come to class the next day and you're scared that, you're going to be punished that you didn't do this assignment. But then you ask your friend if they did it and they tell you, no, they didn't. And all of a sudden, you're not as scared as you would have been if you were the only one who didn't do it. You know what I mean? So that's the analogy I use, like when you're going through life. So we get the fact that life is scary, but when you're going through life with other people, it's less scary. Like you can depend on other people and let's be honest, human beings are social creatures. We've evolved to be, community dependent and all of that. So it makes sense why we will depend on each other and why we will form communities that, boost our own health and our own mental well-being. And funny thing here, I discovered there's even research to support this. So I discovered that, for example, I don't know if it's a research or a study, but there's something out there that says that you tend to walk longer when you're walking with, a close person. Like if you're going, let's say you want to trek, for example, from a place to another place, you tend to walk longer without getting tired as easily as if you were the one walking alone. Because, there's this, it's like subconsciously, it's like the human mind is like, there's someone else doing this thing with you, So there's that. So when I understood that, this research is out there, and I understood that it makes sense why human beings will stick with each other even when, in sickness and in death and stuff like that. Because when you have people who care about you and you're going through your toughest times, you don't feel as bad as you will if you're the only one going through it alone. You get what I'm saying? Because, so like I said, subconsciously, your mind is like, you're sharing this load with another person. You don't have to do it alone, that kind of thing. And that was just how I came to understand that, I don't need the belief in a God to just, get through this world. And community isn't something that is discovered. It's something that is built. Like you have to go out there and find people that you can depend on and they can depend on you. So you have to be conscious about the kind of people you let into your space and the kind of spaces you even get into, because you want to form a community with people who share the same values as you and are open-minded as you, or basically they share the same values as you and they want to see you grow and you want to see them grow. So it's not always something that is, bound by family. Like sometimes family can fill this role, but I mean, we're atheists, so we understand that, family isn't always all that, because coming out is a very dangerous thing. So you have to go out there and, figure it out. And that's why I like what you and Curious doing, because in a way, when someone comes out as an atheist in Nigeria, the only sense of community we have is like this online community. So Twitter, Clubhouse, and I think basically social media, even Facebook, is what we use to realize that, you know what, I'm not alone in this. And knowing you're not alone is really big. I don't know how to describe the impact it has on you. But it's really powerful. So that was how I came to the understanding that, I don't believe in a God, and I don't need a belief in a God to get through life, because as long as I have people who care about me and I care about them, I'm good. That's just how I came to that conclusion, basically.
Fucking awesome, man. Yeah, did you update your dad on that's from agnostic to atheist? And I noticed you didn't mention your mom.
Yeah, I never told my mom.
Whoa. Wait, so you should have told her already.
The thing is, the way my house works is, if one parent knows something, the other one knows. So
and she never react.
No. I have no idea what her reaction might have been like, because to an extent, me and my dad, we're kind of closer than I am to my mom, because you know how in in a way, we're kind of the inverted Nigerian family. And here's what I mean. So you know how most Nigerian families is the dad that the children are always scared of. In my own, is the other way around. Is my mom. So like we, I mean, it's not like my dad didn't, beat us or anything or punish us, but my mom's own was like another level. So if you do something bad in the house, is my mom you're scared of, that kind of thing. Yeah. So like over time, is my dad we all kind of, grew close to and bonded with more than my mom. So a lot of times, issues in my life, and I have to tell my parents something. Usually my dad I call first, then he tells my mom, then we all brainstorm and figure out how to do it, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Then there's one last question on my mind. Like, how did you stop believing juju is real? Or was it just automatic?
Let me see. I think once the belief in a God fell apart, every other thing started falling apart. But here's the thing, yeah. So I think I had a discussion with my dad one time about the supernatural. And basically the discussion was like, how can you prove the supernatural exists? I can't remember the details of the discussion, but I'll try and highlight some of my own thinking. So for example, when people say spirits exist, or like there are spirits or there's a spiritual world, what I did was, okay, let's say these things exist here. What are they made of? That's a simple question I ask. Like, if someone tells you they believe in a spirit or something, just ask them, okay, so what is a spirit? And you discover that you have to, they'll answer with two options. Most times they don't have an answer, or sometimes they'll give you an answer that isn't consistent. So here's what I mean when I say what is a spirit. So we all know that reality, that at its most fundamental, is made up of matter. So when you say you believe in spirits, okay, is a spirit made up of matter? A lot of people cannot answer that, So this was like how I got to, should I say, deconstruct spirituality and the supernatural, because there's no, for lack of a better term here, there's no proof of it. And some of the things, I think part of what I did in my research was to research some of these things. So some of the things we would have classified as supernatural if we lived in a different time. It all is like further down the line is just understanding. So I read about the history of biology and germ theory. I think there's this book called Creation. I can't remember the name of the author who wrote it now. But basically, before we knew germs existed, people assumed that if people fell sick, it was due to, as you would guess, demons and spirits and stuff. But now we have the understanding that, germs and diseases kill people. Yeah, exactly. And I'm like, okay, so a lot of these things is just like ignorance. And the truth is, I had to come to terms with the fact that I don't know everything. Because I can't remember why I heard this during my atheist phase, my angry atheist phase. But it is perfectly okay to say you have no idea what the fuck is going on. And you hear people say things like, oh, there is this person from the dead. Can you explain this? Like, I don't know if you, as an atheist, I'm sure you've experienced this, where a religious person or a spiritual person will bring a case before you and they'll tell you, oh yeah, explain this. Yeah. A lot of times people are surprised when I say, I can't. Like, because they're expecting me to provide a scientific breakdown of what is going on. And I'll be like, I have no idea. And it's perfectly okay to say you don't know. Because the truth is, I think as human beings, we have difficulty with the fact that there are certain things we can't know. Let me not say we can't know, but we don't know. Because sometimes can't is just a matter of time. But there are certain things we don't know. So I had to get comfortable with saying, I have no idea what is going on. But that doesn't mean I'm not open to this thing. So a lot of times they present you with these cases. But when you ask questions, like people can't answer. And I think the biggest barrier or what's stopping people from not believing in the supernatural is just the fact that they don't get to ask certain questions. So let's say because I posed this question. Yeah, I remember the discussion I had with my dad. So I posed this question to my dad here. Like, let's say you find out a human being who can run faster than the average human being. How do you prove like like I can't remember what the discussion was now, but you know the story of Samson where he had super strength basically, yeah. What if this guy had a genetic mutation? Or what if he was taking some version of steroids that existed during that own time? Like, given the story we have here, how can you prove that there isn't a much more realistic explanation for what's, happened rather than a spiritual one? Like, it gets more difficult to do this kind of thing. But
maybe there was exaggeration too.
And
he killed 10 people.
Recently, I discovered that Samson is the modern day equivalent of a suicide bomber because this guy took out a pillar and killed himself and killed other people. That's what suicide bombers do. Like, there's no much difference between Samson and a suicide bomber. But let's even use the story of Jesus here. Okay, the empty tomb, the proof that he rose from the dead. And I can't remember which debate I heard. Someone just asked, like, what if the body was stolen? That is a much more plausible scenario than someone being raised up from the dead. You know what I mean?
Yeah, ask the question because I'll be like, okay. They say it can't be stolen, that it was protected. And I'm like, okay, how did you rule out the body being stolen? Because all the people, who are the people that are protected? Who are the questions? If you just keep going back and forth, like it just
let's
gets
even take it a step further and enter the realm of the ridiculous a bit. What if Jesus is an alien? Because, like, let's be honest here, Mary met an angel. Who is to say that angel is of spiritual origins and not an alien or something? Like, you have no idea what. Like, there are much more plausible scenarios to go with rather than he was raised from the dead. Let's even say he was raised from the dead. Yeah. How do you prove that it was God that raised him from the dead? You can't. You just have to take it by word of mouth. Exactly. Like, there's no. So that's what I mean by, like, I'm just using the Jesus example as what I used to get over the belief of the spiritual and the supernatural. So that's how I got over things like juju. Once you ask certain questions, all these things just start falling flat on their head. Because you realize that there are more possible scenarios than just like Superman level kind of stuff.
Those questions. My own was, I just asked a simple question: where the fuck was Juju when the British invaded us? Not once, twice.
My dad had twice. He said that because the British came with, the power of God, it's kind of won over the Juju.
Wow. So God endorsed our enslavement and you fuckers are worshipping the same God.
I think
that's a
the funniest discussion I've ever had with my dad was concerning the Book of Revelations. So as an atheist, I started thinking about the Book of Revelations again because let's be honest here, a lot of people's fears about the end times come from the Book of Revelations. So I was this guy was stuck on an island for God knows how long. What if this guy was seeing shit?
Must have eaten some strange leaves, man.
Him hallucinating this thing is much more likely than it actually happening. So I asked, I was like, I think I even went on Twitter, I was like, because this guy is on an island, where did he find the materials to write all the things he saw? That was one of the first questions I asked. I think someone answered on Twitter. I was like, okay, when was this thing discovered? Like, what year? And it even gets trickier. Like, there's no, I can't remember what I came across, but there's no definite date and stuff. And
everything speculation.
And in my head, I'm like, how are Christians not asking these questions? Like, if you're stuck on an island for, let's even say, 3 days, yeah, and you experience all the things in the Book of Revelations, because Revelations is a book that has, like, I think over 20 chapters, 30-something chapters. It's a very lengthy something. Where will you find the materials to write this thing? This guy did not have a phone. I don't assume they dumped him on an island and gave him notebook and paper and be like, write your experiences. Like, how did he document these things? When he documented them, who found them? Like, because let's be honest, someone could have made up this thing and say he found it on a remote island. Meanwhile, nobody was. I just had so many questions.
Christians can't question it because you don't question the word of God. You dare not question the Bible. Like the Bible is yea, the truth and amen. So that is why they can't go to. It's when you're already deconstructing, wherein you get to the point where the Bible is suspect. Then you can now start questioning the Bible and cross-referencing it with other books or different research. So that's why when people that are fully in it, they dare not question revelation. Nothing is questioned in the Bible. Like you dare not. Even the one that tricks them one kind, God has a reason for doing it. That's where they
I was just surprised that no one had all these questions. But people will do this thing. What do they call it now? This thing. I forgot what it.
Mental.
No, not mental. There's a deep dive they usually do into like books of Revelation, so things about the end times, eschatology. Eschatology. So I'm like, do you know this eschatology? Why is no one asking how this motherfucker wrote all these things down? Like, that should be one of the first questions to ask. But
yeah, not interested.
I don't know. The funny thing is, I know more about the Bible as an atheist than I did as a Christian, and I think that's like the funniest thing ever. Because I think I was reading one of Bart Ehrman's books, and he was telling me, and he wrote that a lot of these people who are pastors, especially in the US, I don't know about Nigeria, I don't know what kind of training they go to in Nigeria, but in the US, they are taught that like most of the books in the Old and New Testament, we're not entirely sure like who the authors are. Like you see Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John here. We have no idea who wrote those books. You know, those kind of things. And that these people who end up becoming pastors, they know this, but when they get in front of a pulpit, that knowledge is not there.
They are not saying.
I was like, what? Why? Like, why is this? Like, why is that knowledge not, widespread? And I'm like, why is this even a thing? Because even in his book, he makes mention of the fact that because he said he was a Christian. He was a Christian, right? So he learned about all these things in, I don't know if they call it missionary school or whatever. And that even then, seminary, sorry, they didn't even shake his face because it's like, not just because we're not entirely sure who wrote these things, it doesn't mean, there isn't a God out there. For like the few that we can attest to the authors, it doesn't mean these people were lying and stuff. So he had his own way of, I could be wrong, sure, but he had his own way of rationalizing his beliefs, yeah. And he makes mention of that in his book, that you can know all this and still believe in a God. But these pastors do not make mention of this thing. Rather, they'll come up on stage and be talking about give your tithes and offering and stuff like that. I'm like, why? Because it didn't make sense to me, to be honest. Good for business. Like, it just didn't make sense.
It's good for me. Yeah, bro. Yeah, it's been great hearing your story, man. So, do you want us to find you?
Yeah. I'm on Twitter and Instagram at Israeli_Lee, LEE. Yeah.
All right. Thank you for sharing your story with us. And which
Clubhouse? I think all my social media accounts are the same. It's basically the same username. But yeah.
Okay. Yeah, all right. Links will be in the show notes below.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Great having you. Yeah.
Thank you for listening to this episode. As usual, please, if you haven't subscribed, please, Apple, Spotify, Google, YouTube, and other platforms where you can subscribe, please do that. Would really appreciate that. Then you can also rate the podcast. You can also drop comments and give feedback. You can send emails to give feedback. Then if you want to also share your story the way Israel did, please feel free to reach out on social media or via email. The links are in the show notes below. Have a great week, and I will catch you on the next one.